We begin this hour with Texas Governor Greg Abbott, who is the latest in a line of Republicans criticizing tomorrow's planned No Kings rallies, which are expected to draw massive turnouts in cities across the country. The governor issued this warning on social media, writing, quote, "I directed the Department of Public Safety and National Guard to surge forces in Austin ahead of an Antifa-linked protest. Anyone destroying property or committing acts of violence will be swiftly arrested. Law and order will be enforced." This comes as many Republican leaders, including House Speaker Mike Johnson and Majority Whip Tom Emmer, are calling the planned countrywide protest a Hate America rally and claiming without evidence that the demonstration is being organized by Antifa.
I encourage you to watch. We call it the Hate America rally that'll happen Saturday. Let's see who shows up for that. I bet you see pro-Hamas supporters. I bet you see Antifa types. I bet you see the Marxists in full display, the people who don't want to stand and defend the foundational truths of this republic. And we do. And that's what we're here doing every single day.
The only thing that I will predict today is that the Democrat Party of yesterday is headed to the ash heap of history. These guys are playing to the most radical, small, and violent base in the country. You'll see them on Saturday on the Mall. They just do not love this country, and these guys are afraid of them. Chuck Schumer et al. Are afraid of them.
So you agree that that's what this is about, that they want to be there and sort of, you know, punch their chest there, that they're fighting Trump in this No Kings rally. That's what this is about.
Yeah, we call it the Hate America rally because you'll see the hate for America all over this thing when they show up. Yeah, I mean, that's the rumor, Maria. The rumor is that they can't end this shutdown beforehand because this small but very violent and vocal group is the only one that's happy about this.
I see.
If they shut it down beforehand, then they've got to deal with that group beforehand. If they make it through that, then at least they've made it through their Hate America rally, and then they can get this thing done.
Adrian Elrod, it seems Republicans are living in rumors there and spreading them. I'm curious what this rally is about, but even more so, what do you make of even Mike Johnson, but the Republican effort to rebrand this event?
Yeah, I mean, Mika, I was a little surprised, frankly, to see Mike Johnson go this far. He's tried to, I think, at least have a little bit of a measured sense. But look, Mika, we're going to take a step back. Let's look at how Donald Trump won this election. He won this election in large part last year because prices were too high. Grocery prices, the price of gasoline, prescription drugs, et cetera. This is not what the American people signed up for. I think there are a lot of people out there, especially independents, and we're seeing this in polling play out, who are looking at this and saying, wait a minute. Freedom of speech, the freedom to express how you believe in this country, especially to peacefully protest, is something that's been long protected. It's protected by the Constitution. They are looking at this. They are looking at people like Mike Johnson. Obviously, they expect it from Trump. But for other Republicans to try to come out there and say, you can't peacefully protest because you disagree with the administration, this is a bridge too far for a lot of Americans. So as disturbing it is, frankly, Mika, to see all these Republicans, sort of follow in Trump's suit and say these things, it's actually going to backfire. We're seeing it play out in the polls, as I just mentioned. When people feel that they cannot express their freedom to say and believe what they think and say that peacefully, that is where I think Democrats can capitalize on this, draw that contrast, and where I think, again, you're seeing a lot of Americans who are really disturbed by these trends coming from the Trump administration and his allies in Congress.
Well, I mean, let's be clear. The earlier rallies, No Kings rallies, earlier this year were very peaceful. They're expecting huge numbers this weekend. There has been some organizers who have said, like, look, we want to make sure we keep things peaceful for all the obvious reasons, but also because we don't want to give the Trump administration an excuse to crack down further, which I think they're looking to do. They're clearly previewing that now. And Donnie, we should also note this protests, technically are calling for Democratic leadership to step up too. It's not just Trump specific, but it is pretty much centered on Trump, and it's reflective. The energy that's out there, and the crowds expect to be huge this weekend. A lot of Americans unhappy with where the country's going.
Yeah, I think they'll be peaceful. We've had them in the past, and obviously there is the right to protest, and I think both sides need to behave. Obviously, anybody at the National Guard side has got to behave. The protesters got to behave. it's an interesting time to be doing it. Trump is coming off his most successful week ever as a president. I mean, there's universal backing in terms of obviously what happened with Israel and the fantastic job he's done. So it's an interesting week to be coming out against Trump. I don't know if I would have picked this week to do it, but we'll see what happens.
David, in the first administration, of course, we had all of the women's marches. It didn't actually achieve very much. And then you had this time around Democrats feeling deflated and not getting out on the streets and protesting. It's taking them 9 months to get back out there. Does this theme of kind of democracy, autocracy, which didn't do particularly well as an election cause in 2024, do you think now it has more resonance with people? I mean, it's an interesting theme to be choosing.
Yeah, we haven't seen it yet in the polling. I think what's politically salient about these protests, depending on how many people show up and how they look, you know, the visuals are so important politically, is that it can show a level of energy, right? I mean, what those protests showed early in the first Trump presidency was not necessarily that they would have a policy effect, but it showed the level of unhappiness with the outcome of the election. That translated into a lot of Democratic energy on the ground in 2018. Democrats win 40 House seats, take back the House of Representatives. Yeah. And so you could draw a through line, right, from the early protests to energy that lasted all the way into the next election. And so this time, things have been much slower, and a lot of Democrats have been wondering, what are we going to see in 2026? As I reported last week, a lot of Republicans don't have the same sense of dread approaching this midterm election as they did with that midterm election, because they don't see the kind of energy and pushback to Donald Trump that they saw then. What political strategists, and even I've talked to sociologists and pollsters about this, have told me is that the issue of democracy, as motivating as it is for Democratic activists, and as concerned as many Americans are about Trump's executive overreach, that it doesn't have sort of the same heft as an issue that's going to push a lot of voters to the polls to vote against the Republicans, at least as things stand now, because a lot of people don't necessarily feel like democracy has worked all that well for them. They don't want to give it up. They don't want a different system, but they're focused on the price of groceries. Yeah. They're focused on their economic well-being. And that's, I think, why we've seen Democratic candidates in these off-year races in Virginia and New Jersey and even New York, where Mamdani is doing so well, focus on the issue of affordability and not democracy, because that's what voters want to hear about.
That's why it's interesting, Gina, to call this the No Kings when it was an issue that didn't in 2024 particularly help the Democratic campaign at the end of the election. Would they be better, as many candidates around the country are focusing on affordability, to make these marches about that?
No, I don't think a march on affordability would have the same resonance. I think this is anecdotal, but I think it's true. There's just a lot of Democrats and former Republicans and independents and just people I talk to who are enormously frustrated and want somebody to do something. Why isn't somebody doing something about? I hear that a lot. Exactly, about the the not just liberties that Donald Trump is taking with the Constitution, but the total disregard he has for what we think of as our democratic norms and certain concrete provisions of the Constitution. Why doesn't somebody do something? So I think it is actually significant that, okay, somebody's doing something, that there are going to be thousands of these No Kings events across the country. I was looking into this yesterday. There's just a lot of them, and all told, it's going to be a lot of people. And it feels to me like a moment where that sort of mass movement is an important component, an important step in the run-up to the midterm.